Night gradually surrendered to morning. The ancient stone streets of Jerusalem, worn by the steps of empires long past, stood still. As dawn's first light stretched across the city's rooftops, life began to stir. People stepped into the rhythm of another day. Yet, lingering in the hush of that sunrise was a question that refused to fade. Had the man crucified days earlier truly risen from the dead? Historians anchor their understanding in the most widely agreed upon fact. Jesus of Nazareth was executed by crucifixion under the authority of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea. This isn't only recorded in Christian scriptures, it's also confirmed by Roman historians such as Tacitus and the Jewish historian Josephus. Crucifixion, a brutal and public form of punishment, was designed to shame and erase the condemned from memory. Normally, a story like Jesus's would have ended with his death, but instead it veered in an unexpected direction. The earliest reference to the resurrection doesn't come from the gospel accounts but from the Apostle Paul's letters. Paul, once a fierce opponent of Jesus' followers, underwent a dramatic shift after an experience he described as an encounter with the risen Christ. In one of his letters written just years after the crucifixion, he relays a tradition passed down to him, that Jesus appeared to Peter, to the other disciples, to more than 500 people, to James, and eventually to Paul himself. This tradition wasn't something that evolved over centuries. It emerged in the earliest days of the movement. Another key piece of the story is the empty tomb. While the four Gospels each recount it with unique details, they agree on the essentials. At the start of the week, several women visited the tomb and found it empty. In a society where women's testimony was generally disregarded, this detail stands out. If someone were fabricating the story, it would have made more cultural sense to have men discover the empty tomb. That women are central to this moment suggests a tradition that likely dates back to the very beginning. Alternative theories have been offered throughout history. Some early critics suggested the disciples stole Jesus' body, but if so, they knowingly spread a lie, despite facing threats, imprisonment, and even death. Others argue that the women may have gone to the wrong tomb. Yet in a city like Jerusalem, it would have been simple for authorities to point out the right one. Some claim the post-resurrection appearances were hallucinations, but shared visions among groups of people at different times and places, especially including skeptics like James or former enemies like Paul, are difficult to explain psychologically. Historians can't verify miracles. Their methods are built to explore patterns, not exceptions. What they can do is assess which explanation most coherently aligns with the facts we have. From a theological standpoint, the resurrection is the foundation of the Christian faith. Catholics see it as the fulfillment of God's plan for humanity's salvation. Without it, there is no redemption, no promise of eternal life. Protestants view it as confirmation that sin has been dealt with and justice satisfied. In the Orthodox tradition, it represents the ultimate triumph over death. Across denominations, the conclusion is the same. Without the resurrection, Christianity collapses. Islam deeply respects Jesus, recognizing him as a great prophet, but teaches that he was not crucified. The Quran states that Jesus was not killed, but instead was raised to God. Muslims believe he will one day return. Judaism, meanwhile, maintains that the Messiah must bring lasting peace and justice, something not yet fulfilled, so it does not recognize Jesus as the promised Messiah. At times, archaeology enters the conversation. Ossuaries, burial cloths, and ancient tombs have all been examined. While these artifacts offer glimpses into burial customs of the era, they stop short of offering definitive proof. What we are left with are several core facts. Jesus was crucified. His followers rapidly began proclaiming his resurrection. The tradition of the empty tomb surfaced early. Skeptics were transformed into ardent believers, and the message spread with remarkable speed throughout the Roman world. These do not prove a miracle, but they make it hard to write the story off as simple invention. That morning in Jerusalem, as the city slowly came to life, a small group of women returned from the tomb, breathless with news that would change the world. Soon, those who had hidden in fear, followers, skeptics, even former enemies, emerged with a bold conviction: Jesus was alive. What by all accounts should have ended in defeat became the catalyst for one of history's most influential movements. The historical record preserves the events, but the deeper meaning remains ours to grapple with. And the question still echoes: what truly happened that morning? Yet the resurrection story is about more than history. It's about change. Something happened that took frightened, scattered disciples and turned them into fearless messengers. Just days before, they had gone into hiding. Yet within weeks, they were preaching in Jerusalem's public squares, boldly declaring that Jesus had risen, undeterred by threats from authorities. What could explain such a dramatic shift? For many, the only sufficient answer is this: they genuinely believed they had encountered the risen Christ. The impact of this belief rippled outward. Early Christians began gathering not on the traditional Sabbath but on the first day of the week, the day they believed resurrection had come. They shared meals, prayed together, and remembered the morning that changed everything. The message reached cities like Antioch, Corinth, and even Rome. Some dismissed it as folly. Others clung to it as a source of courage and hope. The resurrection became not just a historical claim, but a new rhythm of life. This belief reshaped ethics, too. If death was not the end, then mercy could overcome revenge. The poor and enslaved were seen as worthy of dignity. Enemies were to be forgiven, as Christ had defeated death itself. In a world where power often crushed the weak, such ideas were revolutionary. Still, there were those who offered other explanations. Some said the disciples were simply deluded by grief. Others believed they exaggerated events to preserve their leader's legacy. And some scholars argue that in times of turmoil, extraordinary stories often catch fire. For skeptics, these theories suffice. For believers, they don't go far enough. Across the centuries, the resurrection has sparked art, music, literature, and profound cultural shifts. Painters attempted to depict the awe of the empty tomb. Poets wrote of life bursting forth from death. Composers filled cathedrals with music that echoed the hope of victory over the grave. Whether accepted as historical fact or interpreted as metaphor, the resurrection has left a mark on civilization few events can rival. Even now, scholars continue to explore the evidence, debating texts, examining archaeology, weighing possibilities. Some see the resurrection as divine validation of Jesus' mission, a moment when God intervened in history. Others view it as the result of human longing, a story born from the desire for renewal and justice. And so we find ourselves again in that Jerusalem garden at dawn. Silence clings to the air, the tomb stands open, the women run in shock, the disciples wrestle with disbelief, and a message begins to spread. He is not here, he has risen. From that moment, the course of history shifted. Empires have risen and fallen, but the story of that morning remains. It still invites, challenges, and demands a response. Was it the greatest event the world has ever seen? Or the most enduring story ever told? That answer, even now, rests with each of us.